nobody is doing what we're doing here.
For decades, Impro theater has been creating completely improvised plays in the styles of the world's most famous playwrights, authors, and genres. We've taught hundreds of students their craft of narrative improvisation and have shared the stage with so many other talented performers. Now, we need your help to keep that stage alive and to discover what comes next.
It's like they're Cirque du Soleil or something.
You can't help yourself. You have to laugh.
I just remember I was just having a blast for an hour.
Improv isn't just about performance and storytelling. It's about engagement and connecting with each other, being a better listener, being a better partner, and building on the ideas of those around you.
The Impro journey started a friend of mine saying, hey, you're into improv. There's going to be a Twilight Zone improvised. Right after that was done, we said, hey, we got to sign up for this.
Impro theater is committed to growing into a more diverse organization, to become a better version of ourselves, to be a place that creates community through art.
It's just getting started with regards to what it can be.
We want to expand our faculty and build a more inclusive school, and to reach out for new collaborations both here in the LA theater community and with artists around the world.
It's exciting to see that we're trying to be active in getting people from different walks of life.
With your tax-deductible donation, you will help support artists, writers, directors, storytellers, and more. We hope you'll help fund the future of this joyful, unique art form and support Impro theater and its school and the next generation of narrative improvisers. Every relationship is a story, and we look forward to our story with you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Impro Talk. I'm Mike Rock, your host. Thank you for joining us here at Impro Theater Los Angeles on YouTube. A couple things. Impro Theater is an improv theater and school, and we have some classes coming up on October 16th. You can join Sarah Montroy-Pepka for Physical Core, which is the class for experienced improvisers, and you must have graduated narrative improv. Go to improtheater.com for more information about joining any of these classes. Intro to Narrative, speaking of, comes up with Lisa Fredrickson on Saturdays on October 23rd. We have Genre Core Documentary Style. If you have done cores 1, 2, and 3, you can join Genre Core Documentary Style with Jeffrey Thompson and Paul Rogan. Improvising Shakespeare has a new date and time starting October 28th for 4 weeks on Thursdays. All that information can be had by emailing school@improtheater.com or go to improtheater.com and you'll find us, find the school information on there. Shows coming up right after this one at 7 o'clock. Impro Theater presents documentary unscripted true crime. This is part of our October series of brand new main company shows, and our guest, who's coming up shortly, Keiko Agena, will be in that show, which is very exciting. Next week, Friday, October 15th, the Friday Impro Theater Community Jam, and then at 9 p.m., Indie Movie Unscripted LA, and then on Saturday, Impro Talk, and then another documentary, this time in front of the music, which is very exciting. So for all that information, go to improtheater.com. And now, without further ado, please welcome our guest, Keiko Agena. Ta-da!
Hey,
Welcome.
Mike.
Thank you for joining us, Keiko.
Thank you for having me.
And by us, I mean me.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to have you here for Impro Talk. And well, let's get started. I just found out that you were born in Hawaii. I found that out because you said it the other night. So what do you consider yourself an island, you know, I don't know, a Hawaii person, or were you not there long enough? Or were you there did you go to school there and stuff?
Yeah, I was born there and I graduated high school in Hawaii, and all my family's still there. Or most of my family is still there.
Oh, so you're a real Hawaii person.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
That's my heart.
Do you get back to visit frequently?
I was just there actually for my mother's birthday. And then I try to go, I'm Okinawan, and there's a Okinawan festival at the beginning of September every year. So now with COVID, it's not, but
right.
That's usually the time I try to get back to Hawaii if I can.
Yeah. And it must be nice as an actor to live on the West Coast so that you're closer to Hawaii than, say, if you lived like inland somewhere or something like that. I mean, not that it's impossible because we have jet planes, but it is it is a little more convenient coming from the West Coast.
Yeah, I didn't. It's part of why I ended up in LA, because also I couldn't afford to when I got accepted to school in New York for college. But it just felt like that gap was too far.
Yeah.
I had just enough bravery and money to get to the West Coast because I went to school in Walla Walla, Washington, and then end up in Los Angeles. But New York felt extreme.
You mean literally, physically far? It felt like it was too far away. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, but both. It's like culturally, New York feels a lot different than Hawaii, where LA is a little closer rhythm wise and personality wise. I'm guessing.
Yeah,
no, I can say.
that sort of makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, we're going to get back to Walla Walla, Washington shortly. But when you were growing up in Hawaii, were you one of those kids doing plays in the backyard and that sort of thing, and doing all the whatever acting kind of stuff you could do in school?
Yeah, I did my first play when I was 10. It was the best Christmas pageant ever. And I fell so hard for acting. I cried when it was done, full on bawling. And I had a very small part in it, but I something about that experience clicked for me. And so I didn't make my own plays or anything like that, but I did Hawaii Hawaii community theater until I got into school, and then I kind of did high school theater productions too with my high school.
And I had a similar experience when I started doing plays when I was like 8 or 9 or something. And after one of the, I don't remember which, I mean, it might have been, I don't remember what show it was. It might have been Peter Pan. I was in Peter Pan. I was in the Nutcracker a few years in a row as a little kid. But I was so despondent after it closed that I remember my parents saying like, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't do this anymore. And I remember, you know how memory is weird and you can like add things to memories, but I know that this little part is true. I remember defending being an actor or defending the performing arts and saying to my parents like, no, this just means that I need to get into another play. I remember like admitting that I was so sad and then saying, you know, did you find enough chances age 10, 11, 12, 13 to kind of exercise the acting bug?
Surprisingly, yes. And the fun thing about Hawaii that I've sort of talked about in different interviews too is that because it's majority Asian American, especially when I was growing up, the what do you say, like open casting is just the lay of the land. So you can play everything. So you can play Alice in Wonderland. You can play like, I think we even did like, I did a House of Bernarda Alba or something. I mean, and even as a kid, there would be some kid roles in community theater, and I would love to do anything.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty great opportunity for a kid who wants that. Were your parents supportive even when you were that young?
Yeah, my dad was fine either way, but my mom was really into it, and my grandmother helped me out too.
That's
so
great.
Which is a very anti or not your typical a stereotypical Asian family, I think. But my mom was like, yeah, we'll drive you. We'll wait for you to do your rehearsal.
Did you have in your family, are there other people that are artistically inclined, or were you sort of the first for a while or something like that?
Yeah, I didn't know anyone that wanted to do this. And the only reason why I ended up in the play in the first place was I was in a mime class. You like mime, right? Do you do mime?
Well, I did in my early days of improv study with a couple of mime artists in order to learn how to manipulate space on stage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. This is a good reminder to do more of that. That is fun. But that's the only reason why I got into the and so at 10 or what have you, my mom just had me in all different classes. So it wasn't it's not that I'd seen someone or knew someone and followed the path. I just sort of ended up there, and the experience was so great that I just kept putting myself in those situations.
Ah, cool. And did it get more serious in high school? Yeah, seems like it.
I think so. I did well. My version of defending myself, I remember there was a teacher. His name was Brian Clark, and he had worked at Mid Pacific, which was a private school. And he said, "Oh, but they had a good performing arts program." And as a sophomore, he told my mom, I think Keiko is good. She should come to this private school." And I remember that because there was only a public school that I would have had to get on the bus and drive and for 2 hours it was on the other side of the island. It was totally impractical, and I couldn't get into that school anyway. And then we couldn't afford mid-pack. But I was so insistent. My mom actually went to work at mid-pack as a secretary in the maintenance department so that I and my sisters could go to school there, because I was so stubborn about the fact
that's amazing.
This is what I wanted to do. Yeah, because you could get reduced tuition for 2 children at a time. So she actually changed jobs for me to continue.
I mean, that's dedication to making sure that your daughter gets what she wants. That's pretty great.
It is really great.
Go mom.
Go mom.
Yeah, I think that you know, a lot of people talk about like, oh, I had this inkling to be an artist, but then or actor, creator, writer, whatever it is, and I kind of got distracted by such and such. I mean, that's my story. I kind of got distracted by something for a little bit, and then I kind of found my way back, etc. But that's great that you were just like gung ho
Yeah.
and went for it. So you then off you go to Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington. Um, tell me about that experience. Like, was it hard to listen? If I grew up in Hawaii, I can't imagine ever leaving. I mean, I'm sure people say that to you.
Yeah.
Uh, so how was that transition? Like during high school, you're thinking like, okay, where am I going to go? Am I going to go to NYU? Am I going to go to? You probably thought of all those other, you know, like performing arts places around the country and things like that.
Yeah, I got accepted to Tisch, but that was the school that I couldn't afford to go to because I'd won a contest, and part of the contest people had come, and then you got accepted. But Whitman actually recruited, so they sent recruits down to Hawaii, and I got a partial drama scholarship, and so that's part of why, that's how I ended up there, is because I couldn't afford to go to New York, and I was too scared. And Whitman has a partial scholarship, but I knew that I had to get out of Hawaii because there wasn't. I didn't know how I was going to make a living doing this, but I knew that I couldn't make a living in Hawaii. I knew that was true. So I knew I had to leave Hawaii.
Yeah.
So I just left.
And what was it like, the transition to Walla Walla, Washington? I mean, it's not a huge place.
Well, I'll tell you this story. It was kind of a very pivotal moment for me in when I got to college, because of what I told you about Hawaii being very open casting.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to school, even though I was on a partial scholarship for acting, after my first audition, and I realized at the board that I didn't get a call back for it. And whether or not I deserve to get a call back, you know, it's here or there. But the thing that hit me was that was the first time that it hit me that the fact that I was Asian might have played a part in not getting cast in this period piece of 3 English women travelers. And I was very naive. I was very young, 17, 18-year-old. And because I had been so protected as a child, I think, and so naive, that it took me I didn't audition for anything for that whole year. I did tech. I kind of shrunk back into myself a little bit for that whole year. And then when I came down and I mean, I love the school. The school is great. But when I came down to visit my boyfriend for the summer, and I had met people in Los Angeles, I didn't intend to stay in Los Angeles, but it just didn't make sense for me to, at that point, I couldn't afford Whitman either. And so I just ended up staying in Los Angeles and studying acting with people that I met down here. So that was sort of my experience with Whitman.
That's fortuitous that you just by coming to LA and visiting, and suddenly you realized, oh, wait a minute, this seems like these are my people. This is where I need to be.
Yeah, I met some really good people. It was a little theater company called Incline the Theater Group. And it didn't have a space. It was just a group collective almost, but I did some administrative work, like office work for them. And they kind of took me under their wing, and I did a play with them. And I just met working actors and good actors. And because of them, I kind of got introduced to a program that I liked and that kind of stuff, just in Los Angeles. So I'm so grateful that I met them.
Did you stick with one teacher for a while, or did you bounce around to different schools?
I stuck with her name's Laura Henry, and she did Meisner, and she had just moved from Los Angeles, but she was working with that group, Incline the Theater Group. And so I did her 2-year Meisner program, and that was really my foundation, my bedrock of how I approached acting from there. Yeah.
How did you find your way to doing improv and doing comedy and stuff like that? Did it seem natural to you? Did somebody in a, you know, in a class say like, hey, I'm doing improv over here at this place or anything like that? How did that come about?
Well, when I saw improv, I just loved it. I love comedy also. I just love to laugh. And then when I saw improv, I just was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then when I did my first class at Groundlings, I think in 2000, I was trying to think about it. I think it was probably around 2005 or something. And it was scared the shit out of me, but and that was another a point at which I was hooked. It wasn't easy, or I wasn't proficient at it, but when it worked, it was so good that you just struggled through the other, which is acting in general. I mean, like most of it sucks and most of it's so hard, but like the couple of moments that are great, you're like, oh, well, I guess I'll put up with all the other.
Oh yeah, I mean, if people only knew the, you know, like there's really no calculus for, if you take an individual actor and say they appear in this TV show for 10 minutes or this movie for whatever it is, if you take that person and count all the hours of auditions and rehearsals and classes and other shows that they've done and calculate all those hours and say all those hours led up to this 3 minutes of screen time. It can be a pretty daunting calculus. But yeah, I think that's what hooks a person into either acting or I would guess music and dance as well. But you know, acting or improv specifically is those moments when it clicks and seems to work and just seems like magic. That turns something on and makes you go like, wait a minute. What was that? I got to get after that again. And there are ways, like there are ways that actors can use improv in their regular acting work and vice versa. It's just that you sort of need a foundation, you know, and you found it in Meisner. You need a foundation to approach the kind of the concept of putting on a role or getting into a role. I mean, if you're coming from the inside out or the outside in. Do you find, have you found over the years with scripted work that you read the description of a character, read the lines and say, yep, I got it, I know how to get into this? Or does it take you sort of time to chop away at the, find your path and chop away at the extra weeds that are in the way to get in there? Or is it maybe sometimes one, sometimes the other?
Yeah, the last. It's sometimes one, sometimes the other.
Yeah.
And easy doesn't necessarily mean that the role is good. It might just be simple. Sometimes if it's hard, you're like, why does this person do that? I don't understand what would motivate them to make this choice. Like, how do I make that believable? And that's actually kind of the thing that I like. If I have enough time, that's always the problem with auditions, is that you never have any time. You have like 2 days or 3 days, you know. But the most fun thing is the justification, which is fun for improv too. I mean, with scripted work, you have the luxury of really playing with a backstory and playing in that imaginary world just for yourself of why, you know, how can I justify this action in a believable, grounded way that at least I believe it? Because if I don't believe it, nobody's going to believe it.
Of
so
course.
I have to at least believe it. So that's the most fun thing for me, is how do I justify this? What a challenge.
And when it's written, the good thing is that it's written and therefore it did happen. This character did this and said this. So therefore I have to spend time figuring out, you know, my way in, how they came to this decision or how they decided to be like this or talk like this, etc. When you're improvising, it's a little different, because it doesn't for sure have to go any particular way.
That's true.
In any particular moment. So choices that you make in character as an improviser you have a little more agency in where they go, which makes, you know, it's a bigger challenge to as an improviser. It's a bigger challenge for your character to make a choice, make a decision, make a choice, figure out why they did it later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you found any particular have you found that like once a casting person knows you and sort of gets you or gets your range or something like that, have you found often that you go in to read for something and you say to yourself like, oh yeah, they're asking me to read for this because they're remembering this other role that I did, and I'm kind of and this character is similar to a previous character. Does that happen? I don't want to use the phrase typecasting because that's sort of a different concept and maybe an outdated concept, but do casting people understand your essences and bring you in as a person has a similar on the continuum of authority, on the continuum of like a personal presence kind of a thing, and bring you back for similar roles?
That's a good question. I don't necessarily, I can't really clock that. I don't really notice that. I do, because for me, it's like, I'm sure that some of that weeding out process happens way before I'm ever involved, like it's just not coming across my desk. But when things do come across or in my inbox, it's just, sometimes it's just, it's like a wide variety. And then for me, it's more, the hard thing is to not write off things. And this is a lot more about my personality as well. The hard thing is because when it doesn't seem easy, the initial response is like, oh, well, why bother? That's too hard. Like it's like, I'll never get that. So then it's like, okay, so that you let yourself think that for 15 minutes and you're like, okay, wait, where is my in with this, how can I fall in love with this person? Because I have to fall in love with this person and I have to believe that I can be this person. Otherwise I can't do this audition. And I only have 2 days in which to get myself to that part where I believe that I can play this person and play this person well and care enough about what they care about. So I think some ins are easier for me and some ins are harder to find that. But as far as what kind of comes across in my inbox, it's kind of a, it's in a range.
Bag. Yeah,
it's in a range, but it is a mixed bag. Now that doesn't mean that those are the things that what I actually cast in. Like the things that you actually nail is like, a certain, are usually things that are a little more easier, or things where you're like, I know it. I know this person. I know how to be this person.
I'm going to stay on this auditioning thing for a second because it's fascinating to me because of my own journey with it as well. But if you have 2 days before an audition, would that maybe be more helpful because you'd get down to business as opposed to if you had 5 days before an audition? Would it get to a point of like, oh God, I'm overthinking it and making too many sort of wild choices instead of narrowing it down and focusing?
For an audition, 4 to 5 days actually would be butter for me. And that's just the way I work. I don't think everybody is like this, but it takes me, also depending on how many pages you have, it takes me a good 2-3 days, honestly, to actually download and get the words in my bones. And then I can't even start really playing until it's in my bones. So most auditions, it's like half in my bones. And so the fun part is, unfortunately, the fun part is the part that gets truncated because the memorizing has to happen, or at least the way that I work now. I might be changing that. I might change my audition process, but at least the way it is for me now.
In the COVID era with having to shoot auditions at home, has it relaxed you more? Because I mean, do you even get nervous? I would imagine that at this point might not even really get audition nerves at all?
Well, it's different because we have, it's not, when we're taping ourselves, I don't know, when I'm taping myself, I should speak for myself. When I'm taping myself, it's not audition nerves necessarily, it's more audition frustration, because there's a time period, and there's also, my partner who is helping me, whoever that partner is, to get it done well in a certain amount of time. Yeah, so I mean, nerves come in more, I think, if we ever get back into rooms and do the whole thing. Oh my God. But then also, one of the things that I find is really helpful for me, but it's just a scheduling thing, is I do like to go to a professional place and have them do it, because of the time pressure. And because also you have a professional person that's reading with you. Well, there was one that I did recently where, because it's a great actor that's, reading with me, she was reading in a certain way that was making me feel very affectionate to her, and have a almost motherly feel to her. And after the first take, I was like, I think I need to be an asshole. So could you be more bitchy? And she was like, oh, no problem. The next take, she didn't even have to warm up into it. She completely changed the way she was reading it, which was so helpful for me. So I didn't have to fight it. I could just be like, oh, now you're giving me all this, but now all of this other stuff can come out, instead of me trying to have to, you know what I'm saying?
That's fantastic. I know that there for people who aren't actors, seeing the audition process portrayed in movies and television, there's the cliche of the actor, in front of in front of a room of producers or whatever, and there's a camera, and the reader is the person that's reading the lines of the other character while the actor is auditioning. And the cliche is either one of two extremes. Either the reader is completely dead and without any inflection or emotion or acting at all, or the reader is overacting and really trying to be the other character. And the truth is that the cliche on movies and television of actors sort of complaining about the reader, that's not without merit, ladies and gentlemen. because you're asking someone to adopt a character and be emotional about something when the person opposite them who's supposed to be affecting them is not giving any energy, or giving too much energy or false energy or something like that. So how amazing to have a reader for you that can take direction.
Yeah, I know. It was kind of like, ooh, look at this. But that, I think, whenever we get out of this thing that we're in, I'm assuming that is all going to change. I wonder what it's going to be like when actors get back into rooms. I mean, I just feel like it's going to be real awkward. I mean, we're used to, maybe there are actors out there that just do a couple of takes on their self-tape and send it in. But I've gotten to the point where I'm like, no, let's do it again.
Not ready yet.
Yeah, the idea of walking in and doing it once or maybe twice, that's going to be a whole thing again. When we're back in that world.
Yeah, I think if you're not an actor, you don't know that when actors talk about auditioning, we literally mean that you walk in the room, they say, hey, how you doing today? I'm good. Okay, let's start. You say the lines, and if it's 2 or 3 pages, maybe if it's a big job, it'll be 2 or 3 pages of the script. They'll say, okay, that was great. Let's do it one more time. You do it again, and you walk out. And maybe 2 minutes has passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's a commercial, maybe 30 seconds has passed.
Right.
Were you ever an actor who felt the sort of weird vibe energy of the room of other actors in the waiting room, or were you sort of, I feel like you might have had maybe a little more Teflon about the energy in the waiting room?
I'm usually pretty Teflon. There was one, I will admit, there was one audition, and it wasn't even someone for my role. And I'm not going to name names or anything like that, also because I don't remember, but I was like, why why are you sending me this energy? Why are we doing this? Why don't do this? And then I went in and just bombed it. I mean, and also I was really nervous. I really wanted it was for this thing. And so all of those factors probably came into play. But most of the time I kind of like it. And also what some people that don't audition all the time might not know is sometimes you can hear the audition.
Yeah. Sometimes you're sitting in the waiting room and you can hear through the wall, like
choice. You're like hearing everybody's choices. Like, what choice am I going to make? Yeah.
I have at times been susceptible, and then at times been completely, cool as a cucumber. And I haven't really ever thought back and said, like, wait, which times did I get the job or get a call back, and which times did I not? I kind of can't remember, because I suppose there's sort of an art or a science to being able to, no matter how you are in the waiting room, to still be able to cross the threshold into the audition room and kind of have your stuff together. And focus.
Yeah. But isn't it also like the strange thing about auditioning is that you're almost running on two different emotional realities, because especially if it's a challenging emotional scene, you have to kind of keep that a little bit alive. Like you're not going to in 2 seconds make that happen. So it's like you have this emotional reality on one side, and then you still have to have this other thing going of the smiling to the receptionist and smiling to other people that in the waiting room, and that kind of nice version of yourself, personable version of yourself running at the same time, because there's no way to snap in. I don't know how to snap into something.
No. That has absolutely tripped me up, is kind of being sort of ready emotionally for the audition, and then walking in and seeing somebody that I know and like, or somebody that I know and don't really have a great relationship with or whatever, and having to kind of be like, hey man, how's it going? I have to cry in about 2 minutes. So that's it. It can trip you up. So at one point, like you start getting TV jobs, and you did a lot of episodes of pretty famous shows, pretty big shows, Felicity, 90210, and ER, and then can you tell me about getting Gilmore Girls? Like, was the audition process hard? Was it easy? Did you walk in and just like you knew you had nailed it? Like, can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. So Felicity happened right before Gilmore Girls, and I really liked that character. I knew her, and she was only supposed to come on for one episode, but they liked her enough that they were saying, oh, you know what, we're gonna add her to the world a little bit. And I had 3 episodes up until that point when the Gilmore Girls auditions were starting to happen. And so I was really jazzed. I mean, this was like the biggest thing that ever happened to me. And when I got the Gilmore Girls script, I read it. Fantastic script. I thought I was way too old for it because I was 10 years older than the character, and I just did not see them choosing me. And also the way that script was written, I heard how I heard the tone and the rhythm of those lines, and I really didn't stray from it. I didn't do a ton of work on that particular role of where it was just written so well. You don't need to put anything on it. This is just say these lines and get out of the room.
The beauty of good writing.
Yeah. And then when I went to that first audition, there were just pages and pages of people too. So I thought, again, I'm not going to get this. And then by the time we went into the producer callback, and then I had never even tested before, so I didn't even know what that was. Like when they told me you have to test for the studio, I didn't know what that was, and I didn't ask. I just said, oh yeah, I need to do the audition again. They said yes. I was like, okay. So I just went in, and I just was like surprised when there were 12 people in there. I didn't understand why. I just went and said the lines the same way I had the last 2 times. And then when they said there was another audition, I didn't understand that either, and just went in for the network and just said the lines the same way. And then when they told me I got it.
So just so for people who don't know, testing is the phrase in television for the producers have narrowed down the list of people for a particular role to a small number. It might be 3, it might be 6, whatever it is, and more people are in the room when you do the audition, because they want to feel your energy live in person, and sometimes you do a chemistry test with another actor who's also either already cast or being considered being cast, so that they can see how the energy of the two actors works together. And this sort of like the likely, I guess the best way to put it is the likelihood that you are very seriously in the running for the job has increased each step of the way, to the point where before your final network test, the actor actually has to sign the deal memo, the contract for the show, because they don't want to say we want you and then have you be able to kind of say, oh, okay, well, if you want me, then it's going to cost you this much money. So you actually signing these documents that say you are going to, if you get this job, you're going to be under contract with us for 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is, and here is the money. Like, yeah. It will say you're going to make this much money. And I've heard people say like, oh, I'm signing those papers and thinking, oh, I'm going to buy a house and a car, and then you have to go in and audition. Mm-hmm. Did you feel this? So this is, you mentioned how you were it was your first test and that sort of thing. Did you feel the pressure of it, or do you think you're sort of being naive about it what helped you?
Yeah, I think that at that point, yeah, being naive about it probably did help me. Yeah, so to contradict myself from your earlier question, I think in that particular instance, the fact that I was distracted and didn't spend a lot of time with it probably helped me, because it was very dry. I think yeah. And then by the time it was the studio and the network test, there was only one other person with me.
Wow.
That one. Yeah.
That's great. I love that story. I just, and then you're on the show for years, and yeah. And that is a life-changing job for a performing artist, and did you feel like you in the way you approached acting, did that change over that time, because you had this experience of all that time in front of the camera, all that time with other actors, sometimes probably not a lot of time with a long script to work on, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think that my experience on the show was good in some ways and was bad in some ways too, in that, I mean, the good part is, oh my God, I loved being on set. I love being on set. It's my favorite job in the whole world. I love television, and that was a great show to be a part of. So just the experience of it, I love. I think the bad part of it was that there was some insecurity that started because I went straight to a series. I didn't have really time. I went basically from working as a temp to being on a series, and I didn't have that middle ground of being a working actor in between. And so I never felt solid. And the pace of Gilmore Girls, of how you approach scripts is a very specific way to approach scripts. And I do think that it's very good in some ways, but I think that it also was hard for me to relearn a different kind of pacing and a different kind of patience and a different kind of breath with acting work. And I don't know, maybe that would have happened anyway without Gilmore Girls. Maybe that would have still been a challenge, but I think the pressure combined with the style of it kind of fused a certain, and the length of the show kind of fused a certain way of approaching scripts that was, I think is very, it's a certain style, it's sort of its own style.
Yeah. So recently you have Prodigal Son, you have The First. Do you, so you're in between time, you've done 13 Reasons Why, you've done tons of episodes of television in between time, but now you're sinking your teeth back into one job, one show. Is there sort of like a muscle memory that's for when you get to do multiple episodes of something that's different than when you're just coming in to do a guest star?
Yeah, I love being a I mean, this is gonna sound so like obvious. I love being a series regular on
Sure.
the show. I mean, and these, getting to do it at this stage of my life also is more yummy because I have a different way of appreciating it. I have a different comfort level with myself, and all sorts of reasons. So both of those examples of getting to know those actors and that whole process was just so enjoyable. Very, very, very enjoyable.
Great. What do you when you talk to young performers? I mean, we met. I think we met because we both worked at Right Girl, reading scripts written by girls and young women, and through Claire Sierra and the Right Girl program and stuff like that. Do you find yourself being asked to speak, advise, do workshops with young performers, young writers, young artists, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, a little bit. Do you mean like, what do I say, or?
Yeah. Yeah. What kinds of things, what kind of lessons do you think that, I mean, apart from, hey, it's hard work and get in there and learn your stuff. And I mean, are there, do you find yourself remembering things that you told yourself when you were a kid, or when you were a young performer, or when you first moved to LA? Do you find yourself saying that to other young creative artists?
Yeah, I always sort of say a similar thing. And this might not be this might not be popular, it might not be inspirational necessarily, but it is my mindset of really, and this is not just for young people, but any person that wants to do this as a job or something.
Yeah,
like
advice is advice, sure.
Yeah, of a couple of things. Of one, of just what are you getting out of it? Like what are you getting out of it? And as someone that knows you, is even more so over like these impro meetings of like, just like, just that heart, like just the doing of it is feeding you, is inspiring, is level, is the thing.
Yeah.
If that's true, then it's always going to be good, because you can always learn. You can always be in a class, you can always be around people that are, it might be harder than other times, but you can do that part of it. Because, and I'm getting a little all over the place, but because it's challenging. So, and the other stuff is not in your control, as far as the being able to make a living at it, or getting certain specific places in this career, because it's not logical. It's not,
right. That's a great way to put it. It's not logical. Yeah.
And so that's just something that, because I would hate for people to get involved not with certain expectations, and maybe this is because this is what was told to me when I was in high school, so that's the advice I live. I just do it. I was going to do it for as long as it was fun for me.
Oh, right. As long as it made sense.
Yeah. As long as it's still feeding you.
That's a great way to put it, is as long as it's still feeding you, then keep at it. And when it's no longer fun. There's this scene in an old movie where a guy doesn't want to be in in swim team anymore. He's not having a good time, and the coach looks at him and said, "Are you having fun?" He says, "No, I'm not having fun anymore." Well, then why are you doing it? It's time for some random questions.
Yeah.
I read in my Keiko Agena research that you got married in a helicopter.
Yes.
Did that happen?
Yes, we eloped. So we were going to get married in Vegas. And I looked at the different ways you could get married in Vegas, and you can get married in a helicopter over at night, looking over the Vegas Strip. It's a 15-minute ceremony. You can barely hear each other because you have these big,
helicopters are loud, and you've got the big.
Yeah, it's very loud. Yeah. But in 15 minutes, you're married, and you take pictures in front of the Vegas sign. Fantastic. And you go enjoy Vegas. Well, come on. How great is that?
That's amazing.
I think people should elope. That's my thing that I always tell people.
Oh, there's another piece of advice.
Yeah. Always elope.
Did you, after you eloped, did people insist on having parties? Were there parties like in Hawaii and in Los Angeles and et cetera? Or how did that work?
There was a little party. My good friend in LA threw me a reception, like a friend reception. When we went to Japan, my mother-in-law had a very formal Japanese dinner, and then I think when we went back to Hawaii, we had like a something like a thing. Yeah. Sure. But yeah. But my friends figured it out because we were gonna be in Vegas for a week. And also I told my girlfriend not to come. She was like, huh. And then my two girlfriends went and had brunch, and they were like, wait a minute. They're like, I bet she's getting married out there. And they called me, and I was like, oh shoot, they figured it out. Who goes to Vegas for a week and be like to your friend, just gonna go with my friend.
Right.
Just stay home.
Wow. Well, that's pretty great. So this is Keiko's advice is to elope. Everybody should elope.
Everybody elope.
Back for a second to improvisation. You mentioned Impro Theater. We are both company members now at Impro Theater here in Los Angeles, and we've been doing tons of meetings trying to figure out this large body of artists, and the still very annoying aspect of having to be online meetings on Zoom instead of be in person in a room together. Do you have a when you first took improv classes, took classes with groundlings and that sort of thing, did you have a particular approach after your Meisner training that assisted you in improv, or did improv seem like you had been doing country music and now you're doing opera, or like how, you know what I mean? Like, did they seem like two very different things to you?
Yes, I had been doing country music and the improv was opera. That is so right. I was like, I understand. I sort of see the mechanics, but I can't do it. God damn it.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. That was.
But did a switch go off at some point when you realized, oh, I think here's how to more often feel like it's working?
Well, with impro, the style that impro does certainly benefits. I think an actor's. I mean, all improvisers are actors, but a scripted actor's sensibilities. And so for sure, the ways that I can be my best improviser self is with impro or with this kind of work.
Yeah.
Because in other ways, I don't know that it helped always.
Right.
I don't know that it really always helped in certain other improv situations.
Probably or maybe because there can be like a forget about all the rules and just play kind of aspect that can maybe sound like, wait a minute, hold on, there's got to be some rules here. Like,
well, yeah, and I would be thinking a lot about, and it's also like going back to what we said earlier about being right. It's just that part of wanting to just be right, make the right choice. That's hard. Have you heard this from sometimes stand-up comedians say that, right? That it's actually sometimes harder to do improv because they're so used to crafting the joke. Like they're writers, but they're a certain kind of writer.
Yeah.
And improv is it's still writing, but it's collaborative writing.
Yeah, a lot of people say to me, like, I wanted to, in class or when I'm directing a show or something like that, they'll say like, well, I wanted to have it go from here to here to here because that's what would have made sense based on, and I'm like, okay, but it didn't go that way. Why didn't it go that well? Because that person said something different.
Right.
Like, all right, so what we're trying to do is we're trying, build it together. Each person puts a little Lego block and puts another Lego block. You don't bring a whole pre-made thing and say, I've got it, I've done it already. Because of that collaboration, we like Impro Theaters has espoused, I guess. I don't know. We've made a thing out of truly ensemble storytelling. And that means that everybody is writing, everybody is directing, everybody is acting, but we're all doing it in real time and, building it piece by piece, which can sometimes you can be on the side of the stage and say like, oh, I thought I was going to do this or that. And now I'm not. I mean, I imagine that if your early experience was, at Improv Olympic or at UCB or Groundlings and et cetera, Second City, that the full length narrative or a full length play style would be a little like weird, if that's a word, weirding. But I remember a few years ago that when you came on as a guest in the show Play Unscripted, which is basically a full length play with no parameters. You just jumped in it. You just dove in,
Loved it. Yeah. I did even when I was at IO, the group that I performed with the most, we did a kind of version of narrative. We usually we didn't time dash or anything like that. We were in one location with different characters. So it's sort of, so even at those places where it's not really their thing necessarily, the group that I fell into was similar to improv.
Was the scene like a mono scene type of form where it's you stay in the same place and people come and go and it's in real time kind of a thing?
There was another group that I was in that did monoscene, which I love also. I love monoscene. This group is RJP was, it wasn't necessarily just one scene, but it was one location or different, like if it was a college campus, then it could be different locations at that college campus, but it was over the course of like one day or something like that. It didn't jump around.
It's I mean, I think the thing that's really exciting about what we do at Impro for people who haven't done it before is just this idea of I truly have to see what's going on with each other performer, and there's a strange fear mixed with freedom about truly riding a wave with a group of people. Everybody's feet are on the surfboard at the same time, as opposed to kind of like some people in their improv, they can kind of come in as a sniper and kind of come in and go, I did it, I'm out of here, you guys do something now, I did my thing. So are you back in production right now, even with the COVID stuff still going on and the resurgence, or are you in between things?
Well, Well, a very exciting thing has happened recently, and
You probably
I
can't
think-
talk about it, can
no,
you?
you know what? I think I can. I think I can talk about it. It did just happen. But so a year ago or something like that, or a couple years ago, I wrote this script for me to star in. I didn't think it would go anywhere, and because Prodigal Son has ended, I one of the showrunners, Sam Sclaver, and I showed him the script idea, and we've been working on it to pitch, and we did. And so we pitched it to Universal, and we just pitched it to NBC. And so we're going to develop this to potentially shoot a pilot. So obviously, I don't know, because so this doesn't mean, just to explain to people if you do or you don't know. So when you sell a pitch, it doesn't mean that you necessarily are going to get to shoot the pilot, but at least we will get paid to write the script over the next, 3 months or something like that. And this is the first time I've ever been paid to write. Certainly first time I've ever been paid to write on something that would be something for me to be in it and to be the lead of it is like beyond, yeah.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yes, I had some drinks that night when I found out that
that's fantastic.
that we had managed to do that. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing for the next 2 months. And I really did want to kind of put some safe space around that, so that I'm not necessarily, I don't want to necessarily be out of town to do something else. Yeah, I don't know. This is just the next 2 months, at least, to really try to give whatever I have to this writing process, and to be able to deliver at least my best product that I can.
That is amazing. Congratulations to both of you. That is enough. You bring up another point, which is something that actors tend to struggle with, which maybe, well, it's not unique to actors, but it's unique, I think, to people who make a living in television and film. It's when and how and whether to make yourself unavailable in order to see family, take a vacation. And this happens, I'll say, this happens at every level of, I mean, until you're a gigantic superstar who can say, I'm out of here. I remember I did one episode of Law and Order years ago, and I remember just hanging out on set and like finding out like the stars could actually say, yeah, we're not going to do any episodes in this month and this month and this month because we're going out. Like the stars were able to actually say, yeah, that's vacation time for us or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, but the point is that, like, even if you don't yet make a living, you still say to, like, oh gosh, if I go on vacation and an audition comes in, I won't be able to do the audition. So I can understand.
And doesn't that always happen? Like when you actually do go on vacation, I always feel like, wait a minute, there was nothing happening. And the one time when I said, no, I have to go somewhere, then you're like, oh crap.
Yeah, a friend of mine said, when I was living in New York, said, I said, I'm trying to figure out if I should go home for this period of time, blah, 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 for this. And they said, yeah, buy a plane ticket and you'll get a job, or you'll get an audition and you'll have to cancel the ticket and do the, yeah. So you have published a book, and it is No Mistakes. It is a workbook, and for amateurs, for professional creatives, for anyone. It's basically like a way to spark creativity in your life. How did it come about? How did you decide? Did you wake up one day and say, like, you know what? I think I got a book in me. I'm gonna get this. How did that happen?
No, I did not think that. So I had, because there is downtime as an actor, I I had started drawing just as a meditative process for myself, just something that wasn't associated with acting. And so I would started, and my drawings were getting elaborate and elaborate, and I would post them on Facebook, back when I was really on Facebook. And then,
Keiko has an Etsy shop with artwork.
Yes. Well,
Is it closed right now?
Well, kind of. I sold like 3 things on there like 3 years ago, and I haven't updated anything. It's still on my website.
But you should contact Keiko and demand art. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
And so I just as something to do, like because that's the other thing with acting is it's hard. You're always a part of something else. It's hard to be in control of something that is only you. So in the smallest way, I could, and I'm getting to the book, by the way. So in the smallest way, I wanted to have something that I could say, okay, I started it, I did it, I completed it. This is a finished thing. And it was very helpful for me mentally. So I kept doing that. And then I was on this podcast called The Gilmore Guys, and I had mentioned that I was doing this artwork, and people had said, oh, if you made this into a coloring book, I would buy it. I casually mentioned that on Gilmore Guys. And then there was a editor that contacted them and said, well, if she's serious about this, I would be happy to work with her to do an adult coloring book. And I was like, oh. So that developed into when we actually got into digging about what would a workbook be. It didn't end up being an adult coloring book, but it became an artist workbook of how to take care of yourself as an artist, which is what I need to do all of the time. And so that's all of those lessons and self-care routines kind of became that book.
The book is No Mistakes from Penguin Random House. It is available wherever you get books. We personally pitch that you pick it up at a local independent bookstore where you are, but if you'd like to order it, you can get it wherever you order books as well. I mail ordered mine and I'm still waiting for it. But it's coming. And I'm excited because we can all use a little boost to creativity. As you say, downtime is something that you can either be productive about or be depressed about. So I'm looking forward to the workbook. And you have some amazing testimonials about the book from the likes of Wendy McLennan Covey from the Bridesmaids, the Goldbergs, from Sarah Watson, who's a showrunner in Hollywood, from Jenna Fisher from The Office, Randall Park from Fresh Off the Boat, and many other things. Rhea Seehorn from Better Call Saul. You did some episodes of Better Call Saul. We forgot to mention.
Yeah.
And I remember when you popped up on the screen, I was like, "What, Keiko?" So that's exciting. Do you think you're going to have time to go do like book tours and book signings and that sort of thing, or are you not? Are you too into the script of creating your pilot?
Well, I think when it just came out, the book, we did like kind of virtual, what do you, campaigning
signings
a little bit. Yeah. And we did, and I definitely did something super fun at UCB, LA.
Yeah.
And it had some improvisers that I adore come do a show, because of course, any excuse to do a show.
Yeah.
And did that. And then we had one in New York. But I mean, it's so weird now. I have a friend, this is a total tangent, so we can edit, but I have a friend who's I have a friend that is coming out with a book right now, and it's so challenging because of COVID, because she's trying to figure out, like, I mean, this is one of my best friends ever, and if she wanted to have like a huge get-togethers and book, it would happen, and it's just everything is so unknown as far as like getting to these tours and things like that. It's
when you're writing your pilot, do you open a Google Doc and write at the same time in the same document, or do you send each other drafts, or do you actually sit in the same room to write together?
Because we started once COVID was a thing, we have a Google Doc.
Yeah.
So we will just write over each other. And this is new for me because I've had other writing partners, but this is in any case, it's just a different experience. And it's he's very comfortable writing and deleting with me, and I'm very comfortable writing and deleting with him. And that's probably because we just started doing that 2 months ago. But at this point, yeah. And then we'll have like Zooms. We'll have Zoom conversations and stuff like that.
Is there a lesson in there as an artist, like to not be precious about your work, or am I drawing too much of a conclusion there?
No, I had to learn that also with this process, is that and I've heard writers describe this, and I'm so glad that I actually got to experience it, of the good stuff will come back. So if he deletes something and I go, no, I think we need that, then it just comes back. And if you forgot, if he deletes something you don't remember or you don't notice, then it wasn't that good and you don't need it. So don't worry about it.
The writer William Faulkner said you have to be willing to kill your darlings, which means don't hold on to anything don't hold on to any one particular thing as the make it or break it thing if something takes you in a different direction or something. But I haven't heard it put that way, Keiko, which is great, which is if something is really good and really helpful and really meaningful, it will come back. So to not be so precious about something, and obviously that's a huge improv lesson. Yeah, because if you're on the sideline going, oh, I got this real good one, that it's never gonna work. It's always gonna be the guarantee it will never work.
Thing.
Yeah. I love it.
It's always the worst thing.
Keiko Agena, thank you so much for being on
Rock.
Impro Talk.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I'm very excited about your pilot that's being created as we speak. It's in the hopper. It's in the
Well, think good thoughts.
Yeah. And I'll look forward. Maybe we'll do a part 2 when you're in production for the show.
That's right. Let's put that out there in the universe. I love it.
I want to thank our OBS tech operator, Chris Dion, and our chat moderator, Allison Inconstanti, and our honored guest, Keiko Agena, for joining us for Impro Talk. And thank you for listening if you're listening, or watching if you're watching. And stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.